You can call me Mystic Mike because I predict these things.
Reinier de Ritter takes on Bo Nickal this Saturday as the co-main event of UFC Fight Night Des Moines, Iowa. And this is a inflection point for both of these guys where we find out, are they as good as we think they are? Reinier de Ritter making his third appearance in the UFC since making the jump from one championship where he was the middleweight and light heavyweight champion, coming off of 2 consecutive wins over Gerald Meerschaert and Kevin Holland. Bo Nickal making his return since his kind of lackluster performance last November against Paul Craig. So both these guys kind of coming off of iffy performances, if you want to say that. Reinier de Ritter had a very sketchy, by the skin of his teeth win over Gerald Meerschaert, who I'm assuming they gave to him thinking that he'd have a very good showing of himself and kind of be a new highly touted prospect in the UFC, but was very 50-50 in that fight. Had his moments. I think dropped GM3 at the beginning or in the first round. They would scramble back and forth on the ground. Eventually got the submission over GM3 when he looked like he was kind of gassing, but had a very good performance over Kevin Holland. But again, Kevin Holland, very undersized for middleweight, shouldn't be fighting in that division, needs to take his career and nutrition seriously and stay consistent at 170, but got the takedown, was just too big for him. Eventually got the sub, but looked really good in that fight. I thought he was going to have a lot of trouble with Kevin Holland on the feet, but immediately got the single leg, got him down, took his back, choked him out. Bo Nickal, only 7 fights in his career, very good fighter, coming off of a win over Paul Craig where he was a minus 1350 favorite. Won the fight, did more damage on the feet, didn't shoot takedowns, didn't look like he wanted anything to do with Paul Craig's ground game, which is kind of concerning because at some point you're going to have to go to the ground with some of these guys that are really good wrestlers who are going to be better than you at striking. So he's going to have to be able to mix it up and utilize his high-level grappling, because he is an elite college wrestler, 3-time national champion at Penn State, Dan Hodge trophy winner, switched over to MMA back in like 2022, so hasn't been doing it that long, but has really good stand-up for only been doing it for 3 years, has some knockout wins, submissions, obviously a decision over Paul Craig, had a really nasty knockout over Val Woodburn, which isn't really saying much. Val Woodburn is not on his level. He was a minus 1600 favorite, should have beat him. But also has some submissions over Jamie Pickett, Cody Brundage, kind of bottom of the barrel guys at middleweight. So I'm curious to see how he performs, taking a step up in competition against a guy like Reinier de Ritter, who's very high level, 2 losses in his career against the same guy, who's also very good, and Anatoly Malikin, I think his name was. But he feints really well. So his opponents don't really know, is he throwing a left hand? Is he shooting a takedown? So he always has that in his back pocket, that wrestling threat that really opens up his striking on the feet, and has a powerful left hand. And we saw him tag Paul Craig with that a few times, and obviously put out Val Woodburn with it too. Reinier de Ritter, more of a grappler. I would say primarily a grappler. He did drop GM3 with his I think it was a left hand, like right elbow, left hand. But just very sloppy on the feet, a lot of openings, doesn't move his head very well, kind of back straight up, like he can be hit. Kind of zombies in, looking for the clinch, and it's kind of dangerous against somebody, who can throw knees up the middle, uppercuts, things like that. Has a really good long jab that he can maintain distance with, because he is 6'4" with a 78-inch reach, so he's going to be the longer guy. I just don't think he has the technique or the skills in the stand-up to take advantage of that against Bo Nickal, who can close the distance very well, very athletic. He's got that explosive power that you see from these wrestlers, that where their explosivity that they use for their takedowns translates really well to dipping in and out of the pocket, throwing strikes, and getting their combinations off. So he does have decent takedowns. He had a really good outside trip that he used against GM3 a few times, got his single leg against GM3, got a single leg against Kevin Holland, but these guys are nowhere near the caliber of grappler as Bo Nickal. So this fight's gonna depend on if Bo Nickal can keep it on the feet, and how he's going to fare in the striking engagements with somebody like Reinier de Ritter, who's very similar to Paul Craig, has a lot of experience, more of a grappler, but has decent stand-up. And if Bo Nickal's going to be able to get the better of him on the feet, I do think that Bo Nickal gets this one done. I think Reinier de Ritter, very good grappler when it gets to the ground, but he is kind of one of those guys, he's one of those sport jiu-jitsu guys who doesn't have the best offensive takedown game. And I'm kind of contradicting myself, because I said he did have good outside trips, he did have good single legs, but that's against guys that aren't NCAA Division I, 3-time All-American, Dan Hodge, which is essentially the Heisman Trophy of wrestling winners. I don't think that, the takedowns that he's been able to implement in his career and in his last few fights is going to work against Bo Nickal. I think Bo Nickal is going to be able to stuff the takedowns, get his own if he wants them, and get the better on the feet. I just think he's the more athletic guy, has more power, and I think he just has the better stand-up. He hasn't been in the game as long as Reinier Ritter, but I do think his stand-up is better. I do think he's the better all-around athlete, and I just don't think these outside trips and single legs that Reinier Ritter is using is really going to work for him in this one. GM3 kind of fizzled out in that third round against Reinier Ritter, which kind of caused him to start to get ahead, get dominant position, and get the choke. But I don't think Bo Nickal is that type of guy who's gonna, whose cardio is gonna wane. He's very professional. Never seen him really get tired. He hasn't gone to decisions very often. I think it's one decision, and again, that wasn't the most fast-paced fight against Paul Craig, so the jury's still kind of out on Bo Nickal, but I know he takes his career very seriously. Obviously, being a D1 national champion 3 times, he's disciplined. He knows how to stay in shape, and hold himself accountable and show up to fight, 3 hard rounds if he needs to. So I think Nickal will be feinting on the feet, throwing his left hand, landing leg kicks, getting Reinier Ritter to bite on the feints, which is going to open up his strikes up top. We saw him try to do that against Paul Craig, but Paul Craig, it's hard for a guy like Paul Craig who wants to pull guard, who wants to go to his back and get on the ground to really, bite on feints or bite on takedown feints. Like, he wants you to shoot in on him. That's where he wants the fight to take place. And I don't know if Reinier Ritter is going to be on that same level. I think he's the type of guy that wants to be getting his own offensive takedowns and working from top, not necessarily getting Bo Nickal on top of him, where he's got that elite wrestling base, going to be hard to submit from there, hard to sweep, and might just get beat up if Bo Nickal gets his takedowns and gets on top. So I think that's another tool that Bo Nickal has, is to take him down at will, land strikes, stay safe, win rounds. But I do think he's just going to be trying to keep it on the feet and have the same game plan that we saw against Paul Craig, just kind of get the better of him on the feet, be the more athletic guy, the better striker. And I also think Bo Nickal is going to be the one who's going to be showing the drastic improvements. Like I said, he's only been doing MMA for like 3 years. Every time we see him, he's looking improved. He's got that the same tenacity, discipline, skill, athleticism that allowed him to be this elite level wrestler. He's going to apply that same type of process to drastically make improvements, especially only being 29 years old. Every time we see him come out, we're going to see new shades, ever evolving game, just massive improvements, I think, from him, because he's just such a special high level athlete. Whereas Reinier Ritter, the baby's kind of born. He's 34, he's a grappler. He's not going to come out throwing question mark kicks, spinning wheel kicks, things like that. Like, we know what his game plan is, and I think Bo Nickal can prepare for that very well en route to a unanimous decision victory. I think that he could get the finish. I think he could knock out Reinier Ritter. He's shown to be hurt on the feet over in one. I think he gave up in one of those fights as well to Malakin, who took both of his belts. Malakin beat him at middleweight, took his belt, and beat him at light heavyweight and took his belt. But he has shown that he can be beat up and TKO'd and made to quit. And I feel like Bo Nickal could do that. I just wonder if he's really going to be wanting to commit to his strikes and really putting himself in danger against somebody like Reinier Ritter, who can get the takedown potentially, or catch him on the feet. I wonder if he'll play a little bit more of a safe strategy to get the win here. I do think he gets it done. I think that he can dictate where the fight takes place. If he wants it to go to the ground, he'll take it to the ground. If he wants to keep it on the feet, he can keep it there. And the reach difference isn't that crazy. 76 inches for Bo Nickal, 78 inches for Reinier Ritter. And again, Bo Nickal's got that explosivity advantage to where he can cover distance much faster than somebody like Reinier Ritter can. So I'm going to go with Bo Nickal to get this one done. Obviously, I don't think he's going to get the submission. He's had a lot of submissions in his career, but it's against lower level competition. Nobody the jiu-jitsu caliber as Ritter. So I think he can get the knockout potentially if he can catch Reinier Ritter. But more than likely, I think he gets this one done by decision. Thanks.